But to descend to our own time, we have it to bewail that whatever alteration there is in the face of affairs since the yoke of tyranny was taken off our neck, yet there is no alteration in this manner to the better, but rather to the worse. Malignants are so far from being brought to condign punishment that they are the whole administrators of the affairs in the kingdom, whence it is come to pass that the supreme judicatories, which should take trial of such, and bring them to punishment, and to whom they should be delated, are wholly or mostly composed of such, yea, none may now be reputed malignant unless he be disaffected to the civil government. So that malignancy is not now disaffection to the cause and work of God, but disaffection to the present establishment. And so far they that are truly disaffected to Christ and his interest, this day advanced and strengthened in their designs, that they have, so far as in men lies, put a final stop to all further progress and reformation in these covenanted kingdoms, so that instead of discovering and bringing to punishment them who make parties and factions against the league and covenant and reformation therein concert, the most part of Britain and Ireland are naught else but a party and faction against it, who have cast it out of doors, and for what is apparent, are never minded to receive it again. And upon the contrary, such as are laboring to adhere most closely, though in weakness, to these engagements and prosecute the ends of these covenants, are unjustly looked upon as a party and faction, and prosecuted as offenders, by such as, according to the genuine sense of this article, ought to be brought to condign punishment. It is likewise promised in this article that such shall be brought to trial as shall divide the king from his people, or one of the kingdoms for another, which clause hath been broken by using endeavors to have king and people and the kingdoms all conjoined in an union and conjunction contrary to and aversive of this solemn league and covenant. And these that go under the character of ministers, from whom it might in all reason be expected that they should interpose for having malignants duly punished, are so far from doing so that they make it their endeavor to please them, and upon the contrary they spare no pains to incense the persons in the government against those whose design it is, in the Lord's strength, to adhere to their covenant engagements, and to keep themselves unspotted from the abominations of the times. We acknowledge ourselves guilty of the breach of this article insofar as we have not more frequently and fervently, from a real respect and zeal to the glory of God, after we saw no means of getting such evil instruments and opposers of reformation punished and suppressed by human judicatories, applied by prayer and supplication to God, that he would either of his infinite mercy convince them of and reclaim them from, or in justice reprove and punish them for their opposition to his cause and interest. As also that we have not duly searched into our own sins, and especially the malignancy of our own hearts, by means whereof the Lord is highly provoked to permit such evil instruments, not only to afflict and oppress us, but also to retard the success of his own work, and that we have not impartially and sincerely mourned over these sins in our own hearts and lives, which hinder our own personal, and so have influenced to impede national reformation, and have not forsaken and abandoned them. In the fifth article we are bound, quote, according to our place and station, to endeavor that the kingdoms may remain conjoined in a most firm peace and union to all posterity, and that justice may be done upon the willful opposers thereof, unquote. According to Isaiah 2, verses 2 and 3, quote, and it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established upon the top of the mountains, unquote, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow unto it. And many people shall go and say, come ye, and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob, and he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths. Isaiah 19, verses 23 and 24, quote, in that day shall there be a highway out of Egypt to Assyria, and the Assyrian shall come into Egypt, and the Egyptian into Assyria, and the Egyptians shall serve with the Assyrians. In that day shall Israel be the third with Egypt and with Assyria, even a blessing in the midst of the land. Jeremiah 50, verses 4 and 5. Quote, in those days and in that time, saith the Lord, the children of Israel shall come, they and the children of Judah together, going and weeping. They shall go and seek the Lord their God. They shall ask the way to Zion with their faces thitherward, saying, come, and let us join ourselves to the Lord in a perpetual covenant that shall not be forgotten. Ezekiel 37, verses 16 and 17. Moreover, thou son of man, take thee one stick and write upon it for Judah and for the children of Israel his companions. Then take another stick and write upon it for Joseph, the stick of Ephraim, and for all the house of Israel his companions. And join them one to another into one stick, and they shall become one in thine hand. Zechariah 2, verse 11. And many nations shall be joined to the Lord in that day, and shall be my people, etc. Zechariah 8, verses 21 and 22. And the inhabitants of one city shall go to another, saying, Let us go speedily to pray before the Lord, and to seek the Lord of hosts. I will go also. Yea, many people and strong nations shall come to seek the Lord of hosts in Jerusalem, and to pray before the Lord. Galatians 5, verse 12. I would they were even cut off, which trouble you. Unquote. Quote, But though the peace and union of the kingdoms, while duly subordinate to the interest of religion, was a great blessing of God unto both, and a bond which we were obliged to preserve inviolated, and to endeavor that justice may be done upon the willful opposers thereof, yet some in this land who have come under the bond of the covenant have made it their great study how to dissolve this union, and few or no endeavors have been used by any of us for punishing of such. Unquote. Yea, very little or none at all have the most of us been concerned about this article, whether there be peace with or holiness and truth in that other kingdom, or what sort of peace, or on what foundation it be settled. Both kingdoms are mutually guilty of dissolving this covenanted union, in invading each other at several times, contrary to the covenant. The English nation in subjecting us to their conquest and forcing us to a submission to their sectarian usurpations on church and state, and this nation, in giving such provocations to them, by the unlawful engagement in the year 1648, by treating with, setting up, and entertaining the head of the malignant party, their enemy and ours both, as our king in the year 1650, and invading them upon this quarrel at the Worcester expedition and on 1651. Since that time, after that kingdom, and this both united in that unhappy course of restoring the king, without respect to the covenant, and re-establishing prelacy, which broke our covenanted union and conjunction. That nation hath sometimes sent aid to our persecutors, for suppressing our attempts to recover our religion and liberties. And this nation hath sent forces to help their destroyers, and to suppress their endeavors for the recovery of their privileges. And in the meantime, we have been very little solicitous for correspondence to settle union with such of them as own the covenant, or for giving to or receiving from them mutual informations of our respective cases and conditions under all our calamities and calumnies cast upon us. Nor have we studied to keep up sympathy or communion of saints, or mutual bearing of one another's burdens, as became covenanted brethren. On the other hand, instead of union in truth and duty, according to the bond of the covenant, a confederacy hath been studied in defection from the covenant, and in union and peace, which wanted the foundation laid down in the foregoing articles of the covenant, that is, quote, uniformity in doctrine, worship, discipline, and government, against popery, prelacy, schism, sectarianism, for our religion, laws, and liberties, and discovering, suppressing, and punishing the enemies of these interests. Unquote. Such an union hath not been studied nor sought, but on the contrary, an union against the Reformation and uniformity, for prelacy and sectarian multiformity, by maintaining tyranny and strengthening malignancy. Yea, by the means of this incorporating union now of late established, prelacy is not only strengthened and confirmed, but so settled as to continue to all succeeding generations, and this nation's slavery as well as their sin perpetuated. And persons of all ranks have a deep hand in this trespass, the nobility and gentry who represented the nation, in surrendering their own in the nation's rights and privileges, ministers not warning them faithfully to beware of that covenant-breaking course, which could not but provoke God to anger against this poor island, but showing more concern in that juncture for settling their own than for securing and advancing Christ's interest, and the body of the land, in that they did not bestir themselves for the defense of their own liberties in a lawful way. In the 6th article we are bound, quote, according to our places and callings in this common cause of religion, liberty, and peace, to assist and defend all those that enter into this league and covenant in the maintaining thereof. And in the national covenant, in the like manner, we are bound to stand to the mutual defense and assistance, every one of us of another, in the same cause, with our best counsel, our bodies, means, and whole power against all sorts of persons whatsoever, so that whatsoever shall be done to the least of us for that cause should be taken as done to all of us in general, and to every one of us in particular. Unquote. A duty very clear in the Scriptures. Judges 5, verse 23, quote, curse ye Meroz, said the angel of the Lord, curse ye bitterly the inhabitants thereof, because they came not to the help of the Lord, to help the Lord against the mighty. Unquote. 1 Chronicles 12, verse 1, quote, now these are they that came to David to Ziklag, while he yet kept himself close because of Saul the son of Kish. And they were among the mighty men, helpers of the war. Verse 18, then the Spirit came upon Amasiah, who was chief of the captains, and he said, Thine are we, David, and on thy side, thou son of Jesse. Peace, peace be unto thee, and peace be to thine helpers, for thy God helpeth thee. Then David received them and made them captains of the band. Nehemiah 4, verse 14. And I looked and rose up, and said unto the nobles, and to the rulers, and to the rest of the people, Be not ye afraid of them. Remember the Lord, which is great and terrible, and fight for your brethren, your sons and your daughters, your wives and your houses. Proverbs 24, verses 11 and 12. If thou forbear to deliver them that are drawn into death, and those that are ready to be slain, if thou sayest, Behold, we knew it not, doth not he that pondereth the heart consider it, and he that keepeth thy soul, doth not he know it, and shall not he render to every man according to his works? Unquote. But alas, how little conscience hath been made of this duty. Quote, We have suffered many of our brethren in many parts of the land to be oppressed of the common enemy, without compassion or relief. There hath been great murmuring and repining because of expenses of means and pains in doing of our duty. Unquote. And not only so, but many did swear and subscribe oaths and bonds expressly against such assistances, and to condemn all such endeavors to assist, defend, or rescue them, as rebellion and sedition, and obliging them to assist their murdering malignant enemies by such concurrences as they required. Yea, many, instead of coming out to help the Lord against the mighty, and defending their brethren, did come out to help of the mighty against the Lord, his cause, covenant, and oppressed people, concurring in arms against them at all the appearances that were made and assayed for the cause of Christ, comparing at courts held for informing against and condemning their brethren that were present at or concerned in such appearances for the covenanted cause, and coming in as witnesses against them, sitting in assizes for condemning them, and guarding them to their executioners when martyred for their duty and the interest of truth. Many likewise denied to resent, harbor, or entertain their brethren persecuted for maintaining the covenanted Reformation. Some raised the hue and cry after them, thereby occasioning and assisting in the murder of several faithful brethren. The most part owned to the great murderer who authorized all the rest and enacted all these murders, and assisted him and his accomplices and executioners of his murdering mandates, and their persons and estates, in paying the supplies professedly demanded and declaredly imposed for enabling them to accomplish these mischiefs. Yea, many were so far from assisting that they added afflictions to their afflicted brethren, their reproaches, and persecuting by the tongue those whom the Lord had smitten, and talking to the grief of those whom he had wounded. And all sorts of us have been wanting in our sympathy with and endeavoring succor to our suffering brethren. Let be to deliver them from their enemies' hands according to capacity. So also it is for matter of lamentation that many ministers all alongs discovered great unconcernedness with and contempt of poor despised and reproached sufferers, condemning the heads of their suffering, forgot or refused to pray for them publicly. And, as this article was all alongst through the persecuting times most grossly violate, so to this day it continues to be. Any that would appear in the least active for this cause are so far from being assisted that they are borne down, derided, sentenced, and sometimes imprisoned. Whatever motions are made in private discourses or public sermons, which may import a respect to or a liking of this noble cause of religion, or a dislike of and displacency with the courses opposite unto it, are so far from being countenanced that the movers are hated, vilipended, condemned, or censured as raisers of dust, fomenters of division, pragmatic, turbulent, and factious spirits, and loaded with many other defamatory epithets and calumnies, many instances of which may be given since the Revolution.